Today we're doing another brake job on a 2017 Silverado. It's a half-ton four-wheel drive, and I am going to do a full tutorial on rotor turning. So the first thing, once you have the rotor off, is you want the surfaces clean, and this one has a coating on it. So I'm not going to touch that other than I just wiped it off good. On the inside, you can see that it's got some rust, but it's not terrible. And so I'm just going to take one of these guys and I'm going to clean this rust off. The reason this surface here needs to be clean, I've already put this one on, is it goes against these surfaces. So the surface of this is going to be against this, right? And you want, if there's any even metal filings, so like on this one, I have this soft brush here, and you got to make sure that you don't even have any metal filings, that everything's cleaned out really good. Because if it's not, and this thing's not seated perfectly true, you're going to have the rotor's going to wobble, and that's not going to give you a very good finish. So the rust is cleaned off here. So these things seat nice and flat. And let's go to the next step. The next thing is you need something to center the rotor. This is the right one. That's what all of these are. Every one of these is a different device, a little cone-shaped thing to center the rotor. And so you put this spring right here, goes on first, and then this thing goes facing out like that. And then you grab your rotor, and when you put the rotor on, that little cone-shaped piece sticks out and centers the rotor. Then we're going to put our outside piece on, which is this. And then we're going to there's an array of spacers, and this is a nut right here, and that's a spacer right there. That's going to go on next. And so you have this for the rotor, so it's true. This thing actually has a little rubber piece in the center, and I like to have this somewhere in the mix because it helps dampen some of the vibration. And then this is just the nut. So the rotor is chucked up, and we can spin it to see if it's reasonably true. And on some of these rotors, you can put this band around. It actually wraps around the outside of the rotor like this. But this is a rear rotor, and it's so narrow. I don't use that in this application. What I actually have is these guys back here. This is actually a brake pad. I just put these on. They're actually worn out, but it's still fine. It does its job. But you basically just want those touching with a little tiny bit of pressure on the rotor, and it keeps it from ringing like a bell, because that ringing actually makes the cutters put a funny pattern in the rotor. So you want to get that chatter out. And so again, you either do it with this rubber band thing or some other dampening device. And in this case, I just use one or both of these things. Another note on this tooling, so you can see the hole right here. This is where like the lug stud would come through. You want to have these as close to the bolt pattern as you can get them. So it's clamped at the bolt pattern. There's different size ones. These ones are bigger. So if you were doing some huge, like truck rotors or something, these are much larger. Here's, for comparison, you can see the difference in the size of that one and that one, which is the same as that one. So you want to have this circle, try to match the bolt pattern or the wheel lug pattern as close as you can. And this is pretty good here. We're like right on the pattern, so it's clamped in a good spot. Then I back these off. These knobs here just lock it down. Once you make your adjustment, the adjustment is made here. You can see how custom this old brake lathe is. I got vice grips for the knob. So we'll turn it on. I have these backed way off right now. So we'll turn it on. And I'm turning this in right now. So cutters are moving in. And I'm going to get pretty far in there. And then I'm going to turn the cutter. So I'm turning the cutter in right now until it just touches the rotor. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now I'm going to run this in the rest of the way. There's a lip on the inside edge, so I'm going to slow way down. I'm going to cut that lip off. Okay, so I think we're in far enough. We're past the lip. Now I'm going to give these about, I don't know, 3/1000 more. Just a little bit, not a lot. I'm going to tighten these up. And then this has an auto feed function right here. So you just pull this knob, and now you see that it's turning by itself. And so we're auto feeding. And then this thing right here sets the speed. So if I back this way out, it'll turn that dial a lot faster. So now you can see the dial's moving pretty fast. If I turn this way in, it'll slow this way down. So that's how you set your speed, how fast of a pass the cutters make across the rotor. You can hear kind of a howling sound. That's because there is a little bit of chatter going on with the machine. I'm probably taking too much off on this pass, but I don't really care because I'm going to make another pass and just take a few thousandths off to clean it up, and then I'll turn the speed on this dial here. I'll turn the speed way down on that cleanup pass so it puts a really fine surface on this rotor. So I'm not too worried about the chatter. It'll go away on the next pass. I'm just trying to get the rotor clean, and I don't want to make multiple passes to do that. Just one cleanup pass and then a finishing pass. So this thing's about to hit the lip on the outside edge. You can hear that. That's where the brake pad doesn't ride. And usually I cut that by hand because it'll put enough tension on the brake lathe that it'll stall it. It's cutting a lot of material off right now, just on the very outside edge, because the rotor does wear down some from the pad wear, and then it leaves this pretty big lip out here at the very edge, but I just let it burn through, which, like I said, usually I'll shut the auto feed off and I'll just do that by hand so I can run it through it a lot slower. And you can see it cleaned the rotor except for just a little tiny shadow right here. But like I said, we're going to make one more pass and we're just going to take a few thousandths more off and put a really fine finish on this thing. So we're going to shut the auto feed off. We're going to run this in. You don't touch these yet. You don't make any adjustment yet. You just leave it where it was. You run it back in. And we're past. So now I'm going to loosen these. I'm literally going to put like 3/1000ths on this thing. Tighten this. Same thing on this. I'm just going to give it a little tiny bit. Tighten it up. We're going to pull the auto feed. Then we're going to turn this way down. So we're turning really slow now on this, which is making the cutters go really slow, putting a really fine finish on the rotor. And this will be our final pass, and then this rotor will be done. All right, we are all done. And that surface looks amazing. So just clean it up, make sure there's no metal filings anywhere on the rotor, and put it back on the car. One last thing, the nut on these brake lathes is a reverse thread, so tightening is actually loosening. So I just use the inertia of the machine. I kind of swing it this way and then give it a pull. And like I said, tightening is loosening. So off we go with our parts and pieces. Here's our rotor, and we are going to clean it off and put it back on.